I'm not sure where I should start, but when I was born, I was premature, 2.5 months, and the prognosis for me wasn't too good. I had parents that were supportive of me, and my mom every day would move my arms and legs because I wasn't expected to be able to do that on my own. And when my grandma moved to Arizona, she said that the doctors used to tell your parents that you would be lucky if you could lift your head. Every time she heard of a new accomplishment that I had of any kind, she'd say, when you were born, your parents said that the doctors told them you'd be lucky if you could lift your head. And she used to say that, like, look at you now. I started work I went to school like everyone else in regular schools. I had my operations every year for 4 years in a row to correct my walking, and had those operations during the summer so that it wouldn't affect my schooling. Then when I became 18 years old, I started to work for a living, just like everybody else. Moved out on my own. I've worked most of my life. I was born in New York, and we moved here when I was 2. I have 13 brothers and sisters. 7 boys and 7 girls were in our family. My mom had 14 kids. Number 9. We don't have all of them with us now, but we were 14. We were playmates for each other. We spent most of our time together. We did have friends in the neighborhood that we would go and spend time with, but mostly they came to our house. And we used to joke that when we had friends over, my mom, because there were so many kids, my mom never noticed that it was just one more. It's like, and everybody in the neighborhood called her mom. I don't think I ever really counted that out. If I did, I don't remember what it was. Oh, so this is kind of funny too, because my mom, for a while there, she had a baby every year. Me and my younger sister were 11 months apart. and for a while, we calculated at one time, and she spent about 10 years of her, I'm sorry, I forgot. She spent, I forget how many years she was pregnant, but we counted it all out, and it was a miracle. Peckham's a miracle. So when you're growing up in a situation that's not the same as other people, you might find some challenges when you're at a job or looking for a job. I think sometimes people aren't always sure how to respond. For most of my career, I've worked at some of the most amazing jobs with great people, and some places just lack knowledge, and you can find that somewhere. And I think one time I was considering changing jobs, and I just sat down in my chair one day, and I said, Lord, I need a Christian job. And I was thinking of maybe at a church, maybe I'm a person of faith, and my faith has played a big role in everything that's happened. And I was sitting in the chair, and about an hour later, I typed into my tablet, Christian Job Fair, and it popped right up, Desert Christian Job Fair, and it was the next morning, 2 miles away from my house. So I went there, and I met Elizabeth there from Peckham. I was talking to the lady from the church. She was in the first booth, and Elizabeth was listening to me. She said, would you like to place the application at Peckham? And I did, and the next day, I put in an application and I came to work here when they had a space in the training program, just out of the blue, just prayer, miracle. Like most people that come to work here, I started in general information, assisting customers, and then I moved up to the application side, and I assist customers working on the phones for those with applications. There's special projects, which I really like, and I do love learning new things. I mean, because wherever I've gone to work, I always had two goals. One would be that I would learn something that I never knew how to do before, and the other would be that the place where I worked was better because I was there. And those were my two goals everywhere I went. Well, I try to focus my time and attention first listening to the customer, because that can save you a lot of time if you don't have to spend time backtracking over what they said, or if you miss something, that can save you time. And it also lets the customer know they're being heard, which is important. Anybody who's ever been on the other end of the phone line knows how important it is for the person listening to know what I'm trying to convey, or to help me if I don't know how to convey it. When I was growing up, my dad sang, and he always played the radio, and I would hear him singing. Somehow I picked that up from the time I was little. I was so tiny, and I was walking around singing. It just, to me, I was always so happy for what I could do, because it was always changing and always new. It's so like when I was first born, they never thought I'd be able to walk, and I didn't walk till I was 5 years old. I had my first surgery when I was 8 years old, and I had to learn to walk again every single time I had a surgery because it was all new. The way other people saw it was like, oh, how hard this must be. And I was like, no, I got a new set of legs, and I was like, wow, I had like a completely different perspective on what I went through. It's like, oh, wow, I could walk like this now. And I used to wear patent leather shoes, and I'd be clicking my feet on the floor and purposely making noise, and I'm like, I can walk, and it was just like getting a new set of legs. And it was a sense of rejoicing and like, oh, wow, look at this,
Wow. So do you literally sing in the cafeteria?
Yes. Not. Yeah, it comes out of my heart. I don't set out to do it. It just pours out by itself sometimes. I'm a person of faith, so it's almost always Christian in nature, or something from my church that we sing at church. Like, we'll sing a song at church and it'll get stuck in my head for a week, and I'll be like, ah, I mean, so I don't know how else to explain that, because it's kind of, not many people do that. Yes, that's the Overseas Citizen Services. What that was, do you want the description of the program? We helped U.S. citizens who were stranded overseas because their flights were canceled. They were in crisis and they couldn't get back home. So we provided them instructions from our client that would tell them how to apply for a flight home. If you think about the situation, that was, everyone calling was in crisis. and weren't sure how they could get back to American soil. So, it's an honor to try and help people that really need you the most. I think that's why we're all here, and I was honored to serve on that. So I think if you put everything in the right perspective, and if you realize that there's not a soul on earth who hasn't gone through things that are very difficult, you have to remember that you're not the only one. And as far as strategies, I try to use what I've been through to help other people and say, you know what, everybody's been through things like what I'm going through now. The only thing I could do was try to use it to help somebody else. And it really helped me I had to control my thoughts, and I had to be like, you know what, this is what I can do. This is what can come out of this. I can't take back that this happened, but I can pour it into somebody else and help them with it because of what I went through. I think, as much as people are good-natured and they want to help when they look at you, sometimes they can have that instant reaction without meaning to. Like they're well-meaning, but they lack knowledge. They don't see that you're not Mary going through this or that. You're just yourself. You're just doing what everyone else does, and it doesn't even faze you. And they're like, you fell. And I'm like, I got up, And I put the focus on I got up. So in my mind, it's not like, oh, you fell again. It's like, no, I got up again. And as long as the Lord gives me one more getting up than I had fallen down, I'm fine with that. I know how to deal with what I go through, and it's like, whatever. Oh, shock. My jaw dropped. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And the reason for that is because I work with so many great people. I mean, nobody here does anything that they do without learning from everybody else here. Do you know what I mean? We're like a cooperative where we help and encourage each other, and I was shocked, yes. Something extraordinary happens when you are so happy to be somewhere, and so much joy in being able to help people when you were supposed to spend your whole life being helped. When I came to Peckham, it flipped the script. You're not going to spend your life being helped by everybody. You're going to be the one helping people. And it's a miracle. When I talk about miracles, that's the big miracle, because everybody here, I don't see a bunch of people with struggles. I see a bunch of brave and courageous people using what they have to help others do what they can't do. And it's just a complete opposite of the way people normally see things. And it's a business model that needs to be spread to other locations.
Yeah. Why do you think, I think I've talked about this with everyone else, why do you think more companies don't adopt sort of the Peckham mindset or the Peckham philosophy or way of doing things? Do you think they just say, oh my gosh, that would just be so much work, and we can just get all these quote normal people and everything will be fine?
Well, so I think what I was alluding to before, not everybody sees things the way I do. When I've fallen, it's like, oh, horror, I'm like, whatever, yeah. And they're like, And I think they don't see us as a resource. Peckham makes us a resource. And other people see us like, oh, what if they have a struggle at work? What if this or that? And I don't have to worry about any of that here. It's a miracle of acceptance, and it's like a bunch of people passing by because they think the treasure's over here, and they miss the big treasure. They walked right past the big treasure because they didn't even try. And I see a bunch of people here that are happy at their jobs. They love helping people. They love working for a living. They don't want anything from anybody. And they just want to work and be productive and help each other. I don't think, as a whole, some businesses can miss the treasure because they're looking at the struggle. Well, there's a lot of things that I have in my life that I'm so grateful for, but by far was being able to help my sister when she got hit by a drunk driver and had to spend the rest of her life in a nursing home. Because I grew up using everything that I could do to help me learn to do what I couldn't do. When she went through that, I was able to notice things that she was doing, and I helped her use those things to do more. Here's what happened. When she first had her accident, she had such a horrible diagnosis on her that they said she had a 5% chance of, first of all, she wasn't supposed to survive the accident at all. When 2 weeks passed, and then 3 weeks passed, and 4 weeks, and it became clear that she was going to survive in some form, they said, well, she's persistent vegetative state. She has less than 5% chance of living any kind of a normal life whatsoever. During that time, when she laid in bed staring at the ceiling, I spent every day that the bus ran, I went to go see her. It was just till I got her on her own feet with some type of life of her own, where she had friends of her own, and then I just went to normal visits like everyone did, a couple times a week, and I still made special days to go see her and special times, and we went on activities. But the beginning, when she was developing her own life, then I let her meld into the new life she was developing, because we didn't think she would have any of that. And the diagnosis for her was that she would remain comatose or in a persistent vegetative state and never be able to do anything else. When I went there, and again, this is how they viewed it versus what I saw when I went there. The doctors would say, she's not going to get any better. This is it. We're going to, just keep her comfortable, and, she's not going to do anything but stare at the ceiling. When I went there, sister to sister, talking about all the things that we used to do together, singing her favorite songs. I literally, so I would stand at her bedside and I would sing songs to her that I knew she loved. And I would start seeing her eyes flutter like this, and the nurses in ICU would come to me and say, Mary, keep talking to her, because we see on the machines every time you are talking to her about these stories and singing to her, her stats are change on the machine. And I knew it because sometimes I'd feel her squeeze my hand, and I would tell the doctor, and they'd say, no, she's not squeezing your hand. That's just a spastic reaction because because she's brain damaged. And I would say, she's doing this. And they'd say, no, she's not. And I tell you what happened. And this was like, so this is how I knew. I saw she couldn't even open her eyes. And you might go there for 6 weeks and you wouldn't see her do nothing for 6 weeks. And this is after everything I saw her do. I would go for 6 weeks in a row and I wouldn't see one sign of anything. But if I missed one day, and I mean one day, I'd walk in the room, her eyes still not open. I'd walk in the room and I'd go, hi, sweet girl. And she'd be lifting her head and you could see her eyebrows. She's trying to open her eyes. I said, sweet girl, I see you trying to open your eyes, but it's just not time yet. You have to lay back and get some rest so that you can get well. And then when you're ready, you'll be able to open your eyes. So I acknowledged everything I saw. So when the doctors and nurses would stand over her bed saying, she's brain damaged beyond repair, or whatever they were saying, I would acknowledge everything I saw. I see you trying to do this. You have to get your rest, and you'll be able to do that later. Right now, I need you to do this, and I would explain to her that I saw what she did. I saw that, and she knew. She was responding to me not being there, and she did that every time I missed a day. If the buses didn't run on Sunday and I couldn't get there, I'd walk in Monday, and she'd do that every time I missed a day. So she remained in that nursing home. She was there, I think it was about 28 years before we lost her. But this was kind of amazing and also miraculous. I think it was about 3 years and 8 months, they had just moved her to a brand new facility. And I said, now's my chance. I'm going to go to the nurses and doctors, brand new. They haven't been tainted by anything. I'm going to go to them and I'm going to tell them that she needs therapy. I went to them and I said, she's doing this, and nobody believes me. I said, she needs therapy. This is like 3 years and 8 months after her accident, where she was just staring at the ceiling. The nurse there told me, she said, Mary, we know that you're her sister and that you are very close to her and that you don't want to accept the truth. But your sister is in persistent vegetative state. We're going to go in there every 2 hours and we're going to turn her so she doesn't get bed sores. We're going to give her medication and we're going to do everything we can to see to her comfort, but she's not going to get therapy because even if she did, it wouldn't help her. I still had to get a bus ride home and I had to deal with what I had just heard. So I got the bus home and I never cry in public ever, not ever. I sat in the very back of the bus. I put my head down and I made sure my hair was covering and I just started weeping. And I was trying where nobody would notice not to cry in public. When I got home, this is what happened. I unlocked the door to my house, and I literally couldn't even get in the door before I broke down in the worst kind of tears anybody's ever seen. And I just slid down to the floor against the door, and I said, God, did you hear what they said? They said she's in persistent vegetative state, that they're going to turn her every 2 hours so she doesn't get bed sores, but they're not going to give her therapy because even if they did, it wouldn't help her. I said, God, I know she's in there. Show me what to do, and I'll help. I'll do it. Okay, so about, I guess it was like 2 days later, I felt like this really strong inclination to go visit her, really strong. And I couldn't figure out why. I always went early in the morning, but this was that afternoon. And I never went that time of day. And I just felt shoved out the door, like, go now, go now. And I put my shoes on, I grabbed my keys, I didn't even look at the clock. And I ran across the street. Well, I can't run, but as fast as I could. And as soon as I put my foot on the curb, up pulls a bus. I'm on the bus and I'm literally praying, and I'm in my heart, I'm praying to myself. And I said, God, I wouldn't even know what to do once I get there. I just know I have to go there. And as soon as I prayed that inside, I remembered when about 2.5 months after the accident, she opened her eyes. And they were trying to say, Linda, can you track my finger? And she wouldn't do anything. She was just staring at him. And I held up her get well cards, and I did this, and she's going, I said, that's what came to me as soon as I prayed on the bus. And I said, I'm going to put letters in front of her. I went to the nursing home. I called my sister from a payphone near the nursing home, another sister. I said, I'm going to put letters in front of her. And she said, good luck with that, Mary. You know, she didn't think it was going to happen. I already had a tray table there for her. I cranked up her bed. I put the tray table down. I wrote on a piece of paper, I wrote Linda, and I tore the letters. I threw them down on the tray table, and I wasn't putting them in order or anything. I was just turning them so they weren't upside down, backwards, and sideways. And I said, Linda, can you spell your name? And out comes this hand that we hadn't seen in years. Linda. Then I took the paper and I wrote cat, dog, and I tore it. And I went up and down, and I didn't know which one was which. And I said, Linda, which one barks? And she goes like this. I said, God, it says dog. It says dog. And then I messed him up again, and I said, Linda, which one meows? And she says, I said, cat. It says cat. I ran and I got the therapist. And I said, you have to help her now. And I showed the social worker, not the therapist, the social worker from the nursing home, that she knew which was which just by the writing. The weird thing about that was you couldn't just ask her to do something and have her respond. You had to catch her in this teeny little window when she was able to respond, because you would go there for weeks at a time never seeing anything. So I realized why I felt shoved out the door, because she had this teeny little window to be able to respond. And if I could have asked her some other week or year, and if she wasn't in that teeny little window, she wouldn't have been able to do it, even though she had the capability. And they got her therapy. I sat with her. I made her a cardboard spellboard. I can't even draw or anything. And I put on there the alphabet and numbers and yes, no, whatever. And then I put little activities like read book, and I drew a little book that said War and Peace. And, you know, that was her first spellboard. And I sat with her every day. We were trying to get her therapy, and they weren't okaying it because of the diagnosis that was over her. We started writing down everything she would do, and we had a paper booklet in there where we would write things down on our visits, what she would say and what she would spell on her spellboard. She couldn't talk, but what she would say on the board. And one day I walked in there, and somebody who had visited, it said on there, Mom, what do legalities to get me out? You know, as soon as she had a form of communication, she came out of her shell. One of her daughters visited, Mom, what do legalities to get me out? And we knew she was on her way back the minute she had any form of communication, she started spelling everything. She didn't talk for 9.5 years after the accident. Yeah, so anybody that didn't ever believe me, I said, well, the proof's in the pudding. Look at her now. And the nurses that were there knew, because one minute she was staring at the ceiling, and the next visit she was doing stuff they never saw her do in years.
You lost her and I think a brother and your mother, and I mean, what would they think of your accomplishments, not just being Worker of the Year, but just everything that you've accomplished, and just what a great person you are?
My mom would always tell me, I knew you could do it. Doesn't surprise me. No, but one of my first reactions when I heard that I was nominated Worker of the Year is I want to tell my mom. I would say that there's only one way to eat an elephant, and that's a bite at a time. And, you know, I would also say, wipe the slate clean. Forget who said what, who told you couldn't, who, you know, those are people that are just telegraphing a need. They don't know what you know. You're just you, and they don't know that. They want to put the constraints on you, and you don't need any of that. Just teach them, just treat them like people that don't know. And you have the ability to show them differently, because I have spent my life getting different reactions from people, and the only way past that is for me to clean the slate and say those are people that don't know, and if they spend time watching, they'll see differently than what they are thinking right now. A lot of people carry that with them. I mean, I've had all the same reactions they've had to my situation, but my response is just, you know, be yourself. Be, you know, they can learn from what you've been through, and you can learn from them. I think if people have the chance to see a different side of things, they will respond positively, but they can't do that if you don't show them differently. And I try not to tell people that, but I try to walk it out. Everybody I've ever worked with in my life, and especially people here at Peckham, because what I said before really applies. There's nobody here that's ever done anything they've done here without the help and support of each other. And even if an employee is brand new, they teach me things about how to relate and how they're viewing things in a way that I never thought of, and it helps me to mirror it back to them and teaches me how to get through. If it wasn't for Peckham, I wouldn't have amazing opportunities with a bunch of amazing people. I really appreciate the way that the other people that work here pour into me and to my experience. I don't think they realize how much it's helped shape the way I've been able to do things. Well, again, it's a business model that needs to go viral, or should I say antiviral.